Hello, fellow listeners, distinguished, honorable listeners. Today, I would be honored to give you a presentation on the helping B2B high-ticket service providers one lesson at a time. That's all the formal thing I can do, guys. Sorry. But anyway, you know that I screen the whole world, try to find the best B2B experts in the world, and I bring them on the show in order to give you some very insights. And believe it or not, for today, I have Kyle. And hi, Kyle, say hi first.
Good afternoon or evening or whenever you're watching, everybody.
Yeah, and Kyle is actually coming from Switzerland. And funny enough, when I checked his LinkedIn profile, I just saw a picture where he is in a bucket cold of ice. And I was like, okay, that's weird. Who is this guy? And then I actually realized that Kyle is a consultant and a good one. But before I dig into the details, Kyle, maybe perhaps it's a good idea to just give a short introduction on who you are and what you do, and then we can open the subject that I have planned for today.
Okay, yes, Dancho. And it's really, when he talks about the cold water, that probably goes back a long way because I've had some near-death experience in the Arctic. And maybe that got into my psychology. I do not know. But a couple of years ago, I saw somebody swimming in a lake in Zurich. He was in a wetsuit. And I just thought that was kind of funny. The snow was falling and I just investigated things a bit further. And I took up cold water swimming. My background, though, is not as a swimmer, apart from former amateur swimming champion, but it's in electronics, where I came from the Silicon Valley, long, long time ago, in Switzerland. And in fact, I happen to be British, but as Dancho said, yeah, I live in Switzerland. I've lived most of my life in Switzerland. And here I've been in communications, largely starting from a language base and then getting into communications. And then through other work that I've been doing in public speaking, then taken it to a different level, which is in the presentation side, largely for corporate world, but I also work with a lot of startups, showing them how to get their ideas across in a more effective and engaging way for the audience. Today, you.
Yeah, and I mean, when you're talking about communication, one is when you do a live presentation, but now with the COVID, everything even shifted online, so it's even harder to be able to capture the attention. But something caught my attention, which was near-death experience on the Arctic. I mean, you've been to the Arctic already?
Yeah, you might be looking at these pipes behind me, so I have to keep warm by keeping the house warm, and it's not the best background. We'll come on to backgrounds later, but it's just for anybody who might be distracted about what these pipes are. I'm down in the basement. We'll cover backgrounds and so on later. No, the Arctic. Yeah, I was living in the States. I'd been working in Silicon Valley, and I started to go traveling. I've been to most of the states in America.
Oh, nice.
And it was just in wintertime, I got this idea. There was a particular railroad that I wanted to go on, and I ended up driving all the way to Anchorage. I did it by a rather strange route because I started out in Silicon Valley, it's California. Before getting to Anchorage, I arrived at the Canadian border and had a little side trip down to Mexico. But that's another story before I eventually reached Anchorage. But there were two accidents along the way, and I ended up in one of those accidents in a snowdrift, miles from anywhere, with nobody around at all. And I'm afraid that life was ticking away in the way that the engine was ticking its last moments away. It was minus 30 degrees C. Your deep freeze is about minus 18. And I can tell you it's no fun being early 20s, buried in a snowdrift, miles from anywhere. It was, a Sunday, and the car was white.
Wow.
Precious little chance of being found.
Yeah, well, that's scary, actually, Kyle. I mean, but from there, you actually decided to continue with the ice cold shower? No, in the ice cold baths?
No, I think it's just, as I said, it got into my psychology, and it's about survival and extremes. And when you're up against the odds sometimes, yeah, I've got quite a bit of experience in being tough situations and being able to get out of them, which is how I'm not going to take people into those sorts of situations. Nice. But when people are in a tight spot, then it's nice to know that the person you're with has maybe been in some worse spot than you, and how they can get you out without panicking. Because I think one of the things I've learned along with all my stories has been to not panic. And that includes in presentation. There are so many things that can go wrong.
Breathe out.
Much of those fears that we get in presenting. And I still get nerves when I'm presenting or public speaking, but I don't panic. And why should anybody panic? It's a case about having fun. You transfer that nervous energy into excitement. It's pretty much the same emotion, but nervous energy is here. And when you convert that into excitement, that's for your audience. They don't want to know about your nerves. They don't want to know about your nervous energy or your panic, but they do want to see the excitement. If you manage to convert that, move that over to them, that helps with engaging an audience, real excitement.
Nice. And Cal, you're a communication expert. There are people that are scared, petrified even from talking in public in front of a broader audience. Take me, for example, up to New Year 2021, actually. Okay, December 2020. I haven't done single podcast, participate on any guest interviews and everything. And then I sit and I said, Dancho, if you want to move to the next level, you have to do it. And you will suck at it a big time. Really. And in my head, it's like, do 30. And if you still don't like it, then you can quit. And on the first interview that I went, it was like reading a script. There was a piece of paper here and like, they're asking me a question, I'm reading the answer. They're asking me a question, I'm reading the answer. And man, it was hard. And I wish I had a coach or a consultant or trainer alongside me to just walk me through the process. And I was curious, Cal, how do you actually get people overcome the fear actually of talking?
Well, okay, that's an excellent question, because this fear, people don't have it when they're talking to their friends. They don't have it when they're in a small group. They don't have it when they're relaxing. And yet they're still able to talk, form sentences, and be completely spontaneous. Stick them up on a stage in front of a group of people and say, talk about this subject, which they are an expert in. And all of a sudden, where does it all come from? All these nerves and things. And that's partly by looking at the audience in a distracted way and looking at yourself and all your possible faults. Am I wearing the right clothes or not? What's my hair like? What's my language like? And these are all things that are focused right here on you. And the audience is not interested in you at all. I mean, I hate to say this being a speaker, but the speakers that think the audience are interested in them, no, the audience is interested really in what's in it for them. WIIFM, we've heard it. What's in it for them? And you've got that knowledge, you've got that information, you've got that message. And all you've got to do is deliver that. And you can deliver that by having a conversation. I mean, here we are, you and me, having a conversation. I haven't got all this stuff scripted. And yet I was doing a video last week, which it's now on LinkedIn. That whole thing was scripted because things had to be so precisely done and said. That was nerve-wracking because I kept fluffing my lines. Now, as that stuff gets more practiced, I'll be better at doing it. But that was my first scripted video for LinkedIn, where it had to be managed in a particular process. And it's done and it's out there and it seems sort of okay. But it's really about having this conversation with the audience and getting back to the relaxing side. Whether you're speaking to 10 people or 1,000 people, 1,000 people up on stage, if you see the people there and you see that they want that information and they're interested in what it is that you've got to say, then you can engage with those people and look at their eyes and look at the different places, and then you'll see them responding to you. But unfortunately, some speakers, it's like, oh my goodness, there's 1,000 people out there. All worry, all at this level, and not out there for the audience. And it's all about being out there for them.
Okay, I'm writing here intra-focus versus extra-focus, because if you're focused on in yourself, okay, should I blink? Am I smiling? Am I doing stuff rather than focusing on the audience? It changes. And Carl, an interesting question just popped my head. You said there are videos where you're really natural, unscripted, just like this one. I mean, two people talking with a broader audience on the behind, while the other alternative is fully scripted with fully scripted video that you need to be very precise. What's easier? What's better actually? Because some people are feeling better when everything is micromanaged to the best details, while other people are give me just the bullet points that we need to cover and we take it from there. So what is the right balance here?
Okay, that's brilliant, because now so much is on video compared to the way it was before. We are having to produce skills which, frankly, we don't have. I mean, how many of us are used to standing in front of a camera? Yeah, do it in Hollywood. Yeah, sure. They've got all the training. That's why they get paid so much. And we all of a sudden have to connect with that camera. We also have to react to people that we can't see out there sometimes. There's a lot of extra strains in what we're now having to do. And they're not things that we've been trained in. So your question there about the scripted stuff, few of us go to acting school. Few of us are reading scripts and learning the scripts. That's what actors do. So when we're coming to, and you said micromanaging something, I've got my script. The problem then is that if I read this out and I'm micromanaging, so I've got every single word and then I'm reading it. If I'm reading it, I'm not revealing the emotions. I'm not getting the message across.
And you're not focused on the audience. You're more focused again on the script.
On the text that's here. And it's the same thing with when anybody's got a speech. And we're not talking speeches here. We're talking about having meetings. But if somebody's got a speech, do you do a speech with notes or do you do a speech just spontaneously? Neither really. Speeches need to be prepared. You have a script, but then you let go of that script as soon as you can, that you can get into the emotions and connecting with the audience. Now, we don't always have time for that for a business meeting. But for a business meeting, I mean, surely you can have a couple of notes written down, but then the rest of it is up here. It's your knowledge and expertise and how you get that through to the client. In fact, frankly, if somebody was trying to present to me on camera and they've got a script and they want to talk about their business, I might wonder why they need a script to talk about their business. How well do they know it?
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, when it comes to B2B lead generation, which is my core, it's like, come on, wake me up at 6 a.m. I can talk on the subject as much as you want, as in-depth as you want, because that's it. I know it. I don't need something to prepare about it. And it's funny. I was always curious how an actress or an actor can remember that lengthy scripts and still keep the emotions and everything, because Cal, we're now trying to do some online academy with videos and everything. I've just started appreciating actors far more, because expressing the emotions and remembering everything. And because when it's unstructured, yeah, hello guys, I want to tell you about 1, 2, 3, and that's it. But then when you try to do it as a scripted, I've realized that doing a whole movie with effects and everything and a long conversation, they actually need to remember it and even act on it. So I've realized that communication and presentation on a completely different level when I've tried the scripted. So in my head, the non-scripted is far, far easier, at least for me, actually. And
we don't have to just look at the actors. They're at the highest level, but just go and look at people in restaurants. The waiter that comes to your table, or waitress that comes to your table, who makes you feel pretty good about being there and that they're interested in you. They're saying the same stuff about, hello, here's the menu and all the rest of it. But they've got a particularly good way in doing it that makes you feel good. But they're still repeating those things day after day, client after customer after customer. And yet there's some others who come and say, yes, hello, how can I help you? What is it you'd like to order? And you don't get that same feeling from those. So, look around at other more everyday type of things, or going getting a haircut. How does that hairdresser treat you? What makes you feel good about that? And then it's using that for people. It's all this case about the audience. And they're thinking, am I thinking here? I've had a really bad day and now I've got this client who wants to order spaghetti. I'm not interested in the client or the spaghetti, but I've got to take the order. Or is it somebody who's proud and happy about the place where they work, and they want to show that, and they're so delighted that the client has come to eat in their place. Yeah.
Nice, Kyle. And I'm also curious about the other aspect now, because it's one thing when you do it in live audience where you can see the people and you can actually see the feedback. Are they smiling? Are they like, the body language, like I don't agree with this guy. And when I've personally done training with students, you can see immediately the how engaged they are, whether you need some ice breaking. While when you do online presentation, here is a completely different level. So I wanted also to hear your thoughts on how you're figuring out to deliver a fantastic presentation, communicate online, because on the physical world, I believe it's a bit easier because, the fear is bigger in the real because you actually see the people, but delivering communication online for me is a bit harder. So how are you actually solving that, Kyle?
Okay, that's good, because that really comes in with eye contact. There are too many videos. I mean, we've had all this practice, if you like, for quite a while now. And yet there's still people that I watch doing their Zoom presentations, their Zoom meetings or whatever, where instead of looking at the camera, they're looking somewhere else. And that is quite disconnecting for the audience. You may be looking at the audience because you're interested in the audience. What I said earlier is the audience isn't interested in you. But if you're not looking at them, then you're not showing interest in them. Now, it can be quite tricky, this thing about looking directly at the camera. When you've got a large audience, and of course, if you've got your whole screen filled with all these little different picture things, it's quite tempting to go and look around like this. So I'm talking to the person up there, but it doesn't look good on camera. Two things I'll say there. If you've got a group of people, you need to spend as much time as possible looking directly to the camera, as much time as you can. If you've just got one-to-one, it's a little bit different, because on a one-to-one, if you're staring at this camera, it can be a little bit spooky for the other person. He's staring at me, because in real life, we'd be looking around a bit. So you do need to loosen that up a bit. But there's a little trick I'd just like to show you. Maybe one or two others will know this, but a lot when I've shown it haven't known it. What I've got at the moment on the screen here, I've got a very large screen, but I'm talking to you with a Zoom screen, which I've shrunk. So the Zoom screen that I'm looking at you at the moment is about a third of the size of my large screen here. And the reason I've done that is because I've adjusted the screen, because in the middle on the table, I've got a camera like this on a tripod. Mm-hmm. Once that camera is fixed on the tripod, that's where I'm going to direct my attention. I adjust the Zoom frame so that you at the moment are seated just above the camera. That way I can engage in a conversation where I can look at your face and look at the camera, and you'll see very little difference between the eyes. The usual thing that we have with laptops is, because that's the way many of us are doing our conversations, is this sort of thing. Or shall I do it the other way? You get your cameras at the top. So you're looking like this. Yes, da-da, da-da, da-da. And then back to this.
Yeah, like you're reading something actually, but
this is a typical one-to-one conversation. And so if you want to stare at the top of my head for most of the time, it's a bit distracting. And of course, when you're doing it the same way, where everybody is looking at the top of their heads, if you do this little technique about buying one of these tripods, the sort of camera that you can screw on top as well. I mean, depends on the countries that you're in, but here in Switzerland, you can buy a tripod for 20 to 50 francs, and these cameras, if you can get hold of them, 50 to 100 francs. So it's not a huge investment, but it will improve the quality, particularly of the one-to-one. You can now have a really engaging conversation with somebody without having to trip your eyes up and down. And it's also more engaging for them. So back to the one about the audience. The audience, if we've got all these panels all over the place, I can't look at the different panels because that's distracting for everybody else that I would be looking at.
Yeah.
Therefore, I've got to spend my time looking at the camera. If it's a webinar, then I'm not going to get any reaction from anybody either. So it's again, focus on the camera. And then the last bit of this that I would say is switch off your own image.
So you wouldn't see yourself.
No, we get so distracted by this. There was a brilliant article. I put it on my LinkedIn post last month, but it was a brilliant article in The Guardian, and it was about Zoom dysmorphia. And Zoom dysmorphia is something that we're suffering from, where we spend too long looking at our own image on screen. And the net result is that cosmetic surgery in the UK has gone up about 30% in the last year or so. And we get depressed. I mean, why? Why do we? I can look at the picture there. We need it maybe for setting the camera up, especially if you're a presenter. But the rest of the meeting, if we're in there, don't look at your own picture. You don't need to. And if you're a presenter and you were presenting on stage before, very rarely, if you're doing a TED talk, you might see some stuff, but you don't see your own image. We don't need to look at ourselves. Once the camera's set up, once you see the terrible background with all the pipes there, then you're set to go. You don't need to look at your image again. It's distracting. And you need, again, thinking of the audience, not about how you look on camera.
I see, Cal. I need my camera, whether I'm for shaving, whether my haircut. Okay, I need a haircut.
Yeah, but you do that all
regards.
before you get on. I mean,
Of
do
course.
preparation and stuff. So,
of course, no, I was joking because it's.
Hey, I can put aftershave on for you before this call.
When you said now, I started looking. I found hide self camera. And I've hidden myself, and I was like, okay, how should I bring myself on the video? But then I realized that, on Zoom, you can hide yourself, so you can just look at the person that you're talking to.
Just very quick, I mentioned this thing about backgrounds because I've got this. I was telling Adjo earlier, I've got this super new desk that can go up and down electrically. So I'm in a different place than I would like to present normally, which is why you've got this wonderful view of my pipes here. Now, that's not a good background for professional high-ticket business. The one that Dancho's got at the moment, I like that. It's obviously an office, but we got the logo behind, camera lighting and everything else there is great. But if you do have a problem with the background, you can always go to the Zoom settings and set yourself up something perhaps a bit more exciting. We get up, I'm on fire. What's the emotion you want to show today? So this is a sort of fire emotion, or maybe you want to have some other fun and you just want to show that you're being playful. So you have other backgrounds that are saved up that you can then play with. Of course, as we all know, the problem with virtual backgrounds is that virtual backgrounds, you then sometimes have the difficulty that the edge of you is a bit funny. That's why it's always better to have this sort of background. Apart from my pipes, which just show you I'm down in
and I've realized, Carl, that background plays a really big part in the presentation, but also in the sales calls that we have.
Yes.
For putting Bisbee on the wall, it was like I'm in a room living somewhere. Then we put the acoustics, then we put the lighting, then we put the logo. It improved our sales process. We started selling more. And now I have to show you this as well. So now there is no even sign that there is a door behind me.
Yeah.
And we promote the book, which is the Sweet Leads. I have the logo. And in this case, I'm like in a real office. I am in a real office. I'm not sitting at home. It's just that when you see the door, you have an impression, okay, he's in his other room or in the kids' room or in the office room. Yeah. But like this, really the background, I've realized that significantly impacted the credibility. It's weird. I mean, it's the same me. It's the same sales call. It's just that people perceive me far different when I have control of the background.
Yeah. So they're going to see me and they're going to think this is a bunch of rubbish. So unless they watch the video through. Yeah. But on the other hand, I did take a little bit of time to just go and adjust things for this rather unprofessional background. We've been talking about ice cold water and immersion. You see the sign there says breathe. So, there's something in the background. A lot of us are working from home. So we show home backgrounds. But there, you see, it's authentic. That's good. But I watched somebody recently from one of Switzerland's famous banks. And she was obviously at home. But the place where she'd chosen to give us her vast and interesting knowledge was from, well, it was sort of a cupboard. Let's just say it was a very revealing cupboard because stacked on the various shelves of this cupboard were very good views of her underwear.
Wow.
Now, I won't mention the name of the bank, but there's two real big ones here, and it was one of them. For somebody to be showing that sort of detail. Yeah, if she'd looked and then spent just a few seconds and thought, is this the appropriate background to be displaying to people? When we're in our living rooms or our dining rooms or whatever, we got problems with lighting and kids and things running around, all these distractions. And people are accepting it because we've had so much of this Zoom call stuff. But just spending a bit of time on the background, what you've got there, I love it. And I would like something like that here today.
Yeah, thank you. Well, this is my office actually. So slowly, but every month we just improve and improve. And right. I wanted to cover just one more topic because I see that the time is running really fast when you have this kind of exciting conversation. And that is, we've covered different aspects of the presentation, the fear, the physical, the online, the background. I wanted to talk about the languages. I'm a Macedonian, not native English. So when I need to talk about English, there is like 20-30% from my processing power in my brain trying to convert what I think into English before it can come out of my mouth. And many times I make mistakes. And I'm pretty comfortable because it's not my native English. But how important is either having the mother language presentation or having a presentation on a second language. What's your insights in that area?
Fantastic, because there, with the background that I had for quite a few years working with the language side of coaching people, and now being able to do it on the presentation side, that gives me a bit of a unique insight into the sort of problems that are going on. But let's just take the answer from the presentation side. When somebody is worried about their second language and they're worried about their occasional adverb lapses or pronunciation or whatever, a couple of things here. First of all, forget about the adverbs and things, because you just need to go to a language school, but it's not really something to worry about. The pronunciation, if you've got key words that are important for your audience, learn how to pronounce them before you stand up and present. That won't take you very long, and that's an instant thing, because first of all, you get the confidence, and a lot of this stuff is about confidence in presenting, that you will be saying those words in the correct way. Secondly, your audience will understand them. But thirdly, you really need to let go, because when you're worried about your second language, again, it's this thing I was saying earlier, you're thinking here. I don't care about those little mistakes that you make in adverbs or prepositions or whatever. I'm so pleased that you're speaking in my language that I'm going to not worry about those little mistakes, because I'm not there for language training or language coaching. I'm there to listen to your message. And that's what I want to get. And as you start to learn to transfer this worry from here and start thinking about them, you're going to get the emotions and things. You're going to be reacting to them, and they're going to be pleased anyway that you're speaking in their language. There's a lot of positive things. In fact, some second language people have an advantage. And one of those advantages is that the audience may be paying more attention to listen to what you've got to say, because they hear that foreign accent. Foreign accent is really quite a plus. It's not the negative thing that many people think.
Nice. So actually, I should continue whether to speak natural English, or I can actually just switch to Russian English, where I can speak like I know English, but on a different accent.
Indeed. Yes. Depends on the audience and what they will enjoy.
Vladimir, can you hear me?
I can hear you. It is very good. I mean, French accents in English are lovely, particularly if it's a woman speaking in French. I mean, I'll go and listen.
Music to the ears.
Yeah. I think accents are wonderful. So enjoy what you've got. And as you enjoy it, the audience will see your enjoyment too. And play with the audience. It's about playing, isn't it?
Yeah. And I think that gives you a unique angle. I mean, Macedonian English, I use it, and there are not a lot of people that post a lot of videos and podcasts and trainings on Macedonian English. So you have like, I know this Dancho with his unique accent on how he talks and everything. And of course, don't get me wrong, I try to get better and better and better at speaking English. But I think I found a good point here that instead of trying to make it everything perfect, try to focus on the keywords that you want to promote. And then you know those keywords, how to pronounce them perfectly in order to make the overall presentation better.
And the emotions, it's getting that emotion through. Are you excited? I mean, I can hear a Swiss banker, sorry about picking on bankers, but they're sometimes very correct and perfect with the language, and they'll talk in a totally monotonous voice where there is no problems with the adverbs and prepositions. Everything is correctly placed. But we're all sort of, it's not engaging.
I'm out. Exactly.
Yeah.
Carl, I see that we
right.
As the time needed. I want to just as you know, I'm catching always notes from these conversations, and I actually have 5 golden nuggets, which I'm going to convert them to sweet honey spoons. Actually, from now on, we discussed in some previous podcasts that instead of golden nuggets, honey spoons that I took out from this conversation. And actually, it helped me a lot. Honestly, I mean, just from me personally, I think that these things could help me even better present online, really consider on the background and how to do the pronunciation better and everything. So I had, first thing was most obvious. Instead of looking at the nervous energy and just shaking, try to convert it into excitement. It's much easier. Hi, everybody. I'm so excited. And you put some positive energy in it. Then the second one was the fear. and that you mentioned it several times. So it's really important that people are not interested on the internal part that you're doing. They're interested in the external part. What do you have? Insight, knowledge, experience, a story to share with them. So they're not focused on whether your haircut is weird or whether you have mustache or whether you've shaved or not. Is what is in it for them, what value they can get, because they need to spend half an hour on this podcast. And if they spend, is it worth it for them? Not whether my background is perfect. It should be, but it's more, tell me how I should present better. The third one was that really, as a presenter, as a trainer, as a public speaker person, I realized that many of the times we're focused intra versus extra. I'm focused on myself. Okay, try to shake your hands a bit, but not too much because it will be weird. Don't forget to smile. Then try to look at different people at the same time. And at some point, you're like 80% of processing power. It goes to that, and 20% on what you're actually talking. And now I realized I shouldn't do that. I should be more 95% on what I'm trying to sell. Maybe 5% just making sure that you're not impolite or as saying the word stuff. The fourth thing was that, when you do online presentation, there are the key aspects on the camera, on the shrinking zoom. Actually, as you were talking, I already, I have 1, 2, 3 screens at the moment. And this one, instead of having the zoom on the whole, I just shrink a bit on the screen. I put it on top. So now when I'm looking at you, it's much closer to the camera than it was when we begin. So now I'm actually looking at you, but it's much closer than before that you were here. And I was like, as exactly you were saying, like, I'm looking at you now, but from the camera, you're not perceiving it as like that, because when I talk to you, I'm talking to you actually. And the zoom and the background that are also important. And the last part that you've mentioned was the second language. I mean, that I was personally impacted by that, Macedonian English, different accents, intonations, keywords. And maybe that's that with the keyword is actually that that keyword is important and you have to make it perfectly with the right intonation. You don't need the whole sentence. Just find the keywords that you really need to put the emphasis. Yeah. Those are my 5 golden nuggets or honey spoons. I need to exercise on this one. But Carl, I really enjoyed this conversation. And before we finish, I always wanted to check with you how people can find you, Carl. I mean, there are a lot of people that they're really technical experts. They really have something of value to show to the world, but they kind of get freeze or they need actually help in the communication, in the presentation. And I know that you can help a lot in that area. So how people can reach out to you?
Okay. Yeah. Thank you for asking. The best way at the moment is to go onto LinkedIn, where you can find me under Kyle P. Bullis at LinkedIn. I have had most of my businesses come through referrals. It was both when I was in language and also now with the speaking and presenting side. But I do want to get more of a public image out there. So at the moment, the website is not there. There will be a website later, but LinkedIn is the best way. If you trawl down through the activity, there's quite a few little videos and things that I've put up there. There will be a YouTube channel coming out shortly that will put those videos on there, so you can go and watch those as well. But otherwise, the stuff is on LinkedIn at the moment. And that's the best place to get hold of me. If you go to the contact info, you'll also see the email address there as well, kylebullis@gmail.com.
Got it.
The website, when it comes out, maybe by the time you're watching this podcast, will be kylebullis.com.
Yeah, what we do, Kyle, is that below the video, we add the things that you just said. And of course, when the website comes out, we can just add that after it's out. And for everybody out there that are listening to the podcast, I mean, I really enjoyed this conversation on the presentation, because even before the recording started, Kyle was like, okay, you need 1/3 above your face. Okay, you need some this space. So these are things that we should know. And I don't know why nobody teaches this. Like, well, if you want to do a good presentation, and Kyle, we did all this stuff in the last 6 to 9 months. Before that, it was a blank wall, no lighting. We even had the microphone now, which is a professional one. But before that is like, people were thinking that it's enough on the laptop camera with the laptop microphone, and then you can just deliver a presentation. Maybe on one-on-one chit-chat, it's still acceptable. But if you want to do a presentation, or if you're talking with sales, especially high-ticket services, I've realized that you need to control the environment and everything in order to actually give the best presentation possible. I want to thank you again, Cal, for participating on the podcast. And for everybody out there, I really hope you've learned something out of this podcast. And stay tuned because, we always try to find the best B2B experts out there and try to provide a different lesson on each podcast.